Hello, so today I'm going to tell you the story of the time that I hated Wushu. If you know one thing about me, you probably know that I love Wushu, and Wushu is a big part of who I am. It's a big part of my life. However, there was a period of time where I really did hate Wushu. I don't hate Wushu anymore. I think I've come back to having a relatively good, healthy relationship with Wushu. But I wanted to tell that story, so here we go. Once upon a time, I started Wushu in college. It was really a love at first sight kind of situation. Basically, I transferred to a new school. I was ready to get obsessed with something. I think of myself as somebody who's kind of like serially obsessed with things. And I was like, I need to find what's my next thing, what's my next thing. And I saw Wushu and I thought that's pretty cool. And I showed up to a practice and that was it. I think that it was really a combination of things. It was first of all the fact that my body just loves to do the art form of Wushu. Some people like to ride roller coasters. Some people like to, I don't know. Some people like to ride roller coasters. My body loves to punch and kick. It just felt like so much fun. And so that was the first thing. I think the second thing too is that at the time I joined my collegiate club and it was such a special community of people. I got so lucky to be there at a time when the club was full of, former US national team members and future US national team members, people who had pursued Wushu excellence over the course of their life and who were like continuing to do so and continuing to, teach in a way that really pushed you, that really lets you taste, taste Wushu. So I joined the club at that time. It's funny, I transferred from the school that I was in my state to be in a big city, to be in a bigger environment. I was in my application, I said, I'm looking for diversity. I want to, be exposed to other things. So like people who are different than me. And instead what I did was I joined the club full of other, full of other American born Chinese people just like myself. So that's kind of funny, but that's what I did. I found a fantastic community of people who loved Wushu, and were willing and like excited to help push me to do Wushu. And I also think like something about the psychology, it's almost like a, dare I say, like religious aspect, to Wushu, in that there is this idea of you train. You have to do your basics. Basics are fundamental. It's like eating your vegetables. It's like, this is the day-to-day dedication that you put in. And if you do it with the right intention, with the right heart throughout, then that's how the magic happens. It's a long process of the right dedication and the right intention. And if you do that, the promise that at the end you will have good Wushu, that's just like, something about that process just really resonated with me. And I wanted it. I wanted so bad, because of how much my body loved it, because of the great community that I found to show me real and good Wushu, as well as teach it to me. And this idea, if you do this, if you eat your vegetables, if you show your dedication in this way, then your Wushu can have a magic to it that other Wushu people will be able to know and appreciate. There's another aspect of it too, which is that like when I do it, like what I love so much is that, when you step out onto the floor to do your form, like you pull your shoulders down and back, you hold your chin down just a little bit, and you have like, a strong expression on your face. And I think expressing that with your body, it made me feel like that. It made me feel like not like, it's not over the top. It's not aggressive. It is not violent. It is not, like rah, or like, Disney villain. It's subtle and sophisticated and powerful. And I loved to express that. I loved to try expressing that, and I loved to get better at expressing that, using my whole body. And so I fell in love with Wushu in those conditions. It was basically towards like the end of my time in college, and then going to China, the beginning of my confusion about Wushu, deep confusion about Wushu started to happen. The question of like, well, which way is the right way to do things? What makes something better? Training with other students, someone would give you one correction and then you turn around and someone would give you, like, in full confidence, like the complete opposite advice. I was like, well, I don't. What do? You know, when you're a beginner, it doesn't really matter that much. You just kind of like figure like, well, you don't know what you're doing, so just try something and it'll probably be fine. And your body can't really take the advice perfectly anyway, so it's fine. But after I graduated from college, I took some time to go to China and train, to follow to follow my wushu heart, to go to the source of the wushu and see what is this thing really about. And I got so confused. So, I mean, first of all, I had an incredible time training in China. I think just being somewhere where wushu made sense was such a mind-blowing privilege. It's in the air. Wushu in China is in the air. It just makes more sense than it does here in the States. Being there was amazing. But I came to realize that the idea that I had about wushu, the intensity of doing everything, expressing every martial movement, that was a part of wushu. But there were people doing wushu with much less intensity and much less intention. They were doing the same movements, but like with a different, kind of a lackluster spirit. And I was like, what? What's going on here? What is this wushu? I thought wushu was this other thing, and I thought when I went to the source of the wushu, it would be like the most purest, most intense version of that thing. And yet, instead of that, I mean, I saw so many other facets of wushu. Wushu not only as a sport, wushu as a subject matter in school. You take classes, you read books, you write papers. Wushu is so many other things. I met somebody who his like master thesis topic was what is wushu. So there was a whole lot more about wushu that I realized that I didn't know, and I was very confused because I was so in love with some version of wushu, and I was expanding that version, but all the different manifestations of wushu didn't quite match up, and I was like, what's going on here? which way is up? Anyway, I wrapped up my time training in China. I came back to the States, and I thought the best thing to do was like, I love wushu. I want to be good at wushu. And the thing to do, I think, to become the best at wushu is to join the best school. And so what I did is I went to what was a extremely competitively successful wushu school. And that was also very confusing. I think the way to train athletes to win a wushu competition is to start with the rules. The rules being like you have a quality of movement score, a performance score, and a degree of difficulty score. You start with those things and you say, how do I maximize these things? And then you build a form around it. And then you teach the wushu, you fill in the wushu once you have that structure of like matching to how you will do well by the rules. And that makes sense. And that's how you get extremely competitively successful athletes. But I was confused because like, oh, I just want to be good at wushu. I think I must have been a really difficult student to coach because I was still a beginner intermediate level athlete, but I had all of these ideas of like, what is real wushu? What is real wushu to me? How come the things that you're teaching me don't feel like wushu? They don't feel like wushu to my body. They don't feel like wushu when I express them. The rhythm is very different. Like it was really confusing. It was really confusing and it drove me crazy, and it was very frustrating, I would imagine, both for me and for the people who were trying to coach me, to like get on the same page of like, what are we even doing here? Eventually I found a coach. His name is Dingwei. He coaches in Dublin, California. The name of his school is Champion Wushu, and if you want to learn wushu, go train with this guy. I say this because not only does he deeply know wushu, but he's also just a really kind person who will meet you where you're at and help you with whatever it is that you want from your wushu journey. What I found when I went there, I took one private class and immediately I knew, like, this is it. This is real wushu, man. Like the way he would do like a single movement and it would just light me up. It's like, what am I seeing? What is this magic? This magic ingrained in his body. Maybe if I dedicate myself to learning my fundamentals and understanding the real wushu, then I too can do this incredible skill. And so training with him, that was probably the most productive and overall really fruitful wushu training that I've had the privilege of having in my career. However, things started to get tangled. My love of wushu got very tangled when I tried to find a goal. So I knew that I wanted to do wushu. I knew that I wanted to be good at wushu. I knew I wanted to embody this like incredible, powerful art form energy that I saw. But then like, okay, so long-term goal is to be good. What do we work on today? What do we work on this month? What do we work on this year? And I think the obvious answer to that would be competition. There are competitions every 3, 6 months, a year, and structure your training around these competitions, even if you don't want to win, to use them as a goal to work towards. Like use them as it's a fire under your ass. It's a timeline. It's a thing that like it's socially enforced. Like a bunch of people get together, they collectively reinforce like, oh, you tried to do this hard thing, we'll cheer for you. And then if you do really good at the end, like, yay, happy social support for that. So obviously the thing to do would be compete. The problem being that the way that most people compete, well, especially as adults, the thing to do is to compete in an optional form. That's like the warm end of the pool. If you work towards this thing, you will get to surround yourself with the other people who are most like you. They're the most competitive. They're taking wushu seriously. They're pushing themselves to be the best. And then on top of that, if you work hard to do well in this environment, you get to earn additional opportunities. You can compete internationally. You can go on, you win bigger and bigger things. And so like that on the surface looked so inspiring to me. The main problem being that when I trained for optional Taolu, it just stopped feeling like wushu to me. I was still an intermediate level athlete. I didn't have fantastic nandu or difficulty movements, and that made it so in order to put together an optional form, I had to put a lot of effort into just doing it, into just having all the requirements, into putting forth, as much difficulty degree score as I could. And it felt like I just wasn't doing wushu. Like I would try to put together optional forms, and it was such a frustrating process. Like my coach would try to help me, but for some reason, it just felt so wrong to my body to do wushu in the rhythm of an optional form, as well as put so much focus into nandu, when the thing that I loved, the thing that lit me up so much, was just a very slightly different, 5-degree turn of doing a slightly different style of wushu and really focusing on the wushu aspect, focusing on the expression of every single movement, the power and the intention, and training for optional Taolu just I hated it. I hated it. I loved the feeling of getting out of wushu practice so much. Like I would just, it's the best feeling in the world. But then when I would be working on these optional Taolu, I would just hate it. I would leave practice being like, my original love of wushu also happened in a community, right? Like I was surrounded by other people who were, both like higher level and lower level than me. Wushu in that community made sense to what resonated with me. And that was so closely intertwined with my love of wushu from the beginning, is like the sense of being with other people. And so I felt so much tension between wanting to push myself and be part of something big, like competitive wushu, and also just this hatred. this something is so wrong here. This doesn't feel like the art form that I fell in love with. There's some version of the universe where I actually worked through that, where I persisted and I said, this is actually just a period of time in my wushu career where I'm still an intermediate level athlete and my nandu is not very good. So the thing to do is to get better at those things, so that I can put together an optional form and then be able to express the wushu that I love through that form. The solution is just to get better at wushu, which is the thing that I wanted all along. But I was so frustrated, and I hated the training. And on top of that, I felt so much anger and like resentment. Like I would watch other wushu, like wushu that didn't stem from the same ideas of the way that basics looked, and this very sensical hierarchy of starting with the basics and then moving up to compulsory forms. And once you have, you know, a bunch of time learning that, that's when you get to do more of the expression in an optional form, because you know what movements are good for you and what movements don't fit your body as well. Like that natural progression of things, like I believed in that so much, and I saw people who, instead of doing that, they do the competitive version of things where they start with the rules and then they build the form around it. And I saw that, and it just, I hated it. I hated this tension between doing the thing, right? Like the way that other people do the thing, and then feeling like it lost the art form that I loved. It was a gift from the universe, I think, that at about this time when I was so frustrated and so mad at the sport of Wushu, it was at that moment that a talent recruiter, a talent agent for a cruise ship, reached out to me on Instagram. And they were like, hey, how do you feel about boats? How do you feel about water? It's like, They were extremely desperately looking for a female martial artist to do this cruise show for Royal Caribbean. And at the time, I was so tangled. I was so confused in my Wushu path. And, you know, I was just like, you know what? Screw this. I don't want to do real Wushu anymore. I'm gonna go on a boat, and I'm gonna do fake Wushu. I'm gonna do fake Wushu on a boat. There's another telling of the story that's like, oh, you know what I did? I left my cushy corporate job and I followed my passion to do Wushu and become an artist. You know, that's one telling of a story, and another telling of the story is that I was so burnt out on Wushu and so angry at it, so angry at real Wushu, that I just wanted to run away and in some way like forsake Wushu. Like I had spent so long wanting to do Wushu that would impress people who knew Wushu, and instead I said, like, screw that. I don't care what people who know Wushu think. I just want to, you know, be recognized. I want to be part of something. And so yeah, that's what I did. In a way, I was following my passion, and in a way, I was running away from real Wushu. I am happy to say that it was the right decision. Performing actually taught me some really good lessons about negotiating with myself with Wushu, in that, like, when you're on stage, you're not trying to get a score. You're really not trying to impress people who know Wushu. You're trying to impress people who don't know Wushu at all. The things that you have to balance between are, okay, will the audience get this? Is this something that I can do every night without getting exhausted? And am I happy with this? Can I look at myself? Can I look at videos of myself and be like, yeah, that's me? Can I be happy to be sharing with the world what it is that I'm doing? And I think between learning how to balance all of those things, I realized that I could also just do that with just Wushu, right? I could say, well, what do I want? And make some trade-offs. You know, I would love to be I'd love to be more athletic. I'd love to be 10 years younger. I'd love to have the perfect training environment all the time. I'd love to have a coach with, you know, deep Wushu knowledge. Where do I want to live? How much do I want to pay for my training? All of these things they're in negotiation with each other. And at the end of the day, if you can be really realistic about what you want, and realistic about what you have and what you can feasibly put together in your life, and then make a decision about what's the priority to you, you can make trade-offs. You can make trade-offs and then make a decision that ultimately is doing right by yourself. For me, it's to do the Wushu that feels like it resonates with that piece of myself, that thing inside of myself that just like screams that it loves Wushu. I think the performing world helped me learn how to make trade-offs between different Wushu priorities. Like, how important is it to me to be part of a community? How important is it to me to be pushing myself athletically? How important is it to me to have recognition? I realized that was a big motivation for me as well. And then decide, like, okay, well, what universe do we live in? To acknowledge reality and then make a decision based on what is most valuable to me. I think that taking my own opinion of Wushu into account is something that I really hesitated to do early on, because I thought that I knew nothing about Wushu. And that's true. I think that there's a really fine balance to be had there in that, like, when you're a beginner, you really don't know anything. And I think that it's the wrong thing to just be like, oh, I'm just gonna follow my heart and do whatever wushu feels good, because there is some risk there of never getting good, of never putting in enough hard reps of things that you don't like to do in order to really get better. But I think over time I've come to trust that what what I think what I think for my own wushu is important. And that's actually the most powerful fuel that I have, is that, I might be fueled by competition or by crowds or, the recognition of being on stage, but the most powerful fuel that I have is to get myself in alignment with my own passion and love for wushu. And when I can do that, then that's when good things happen. Good things happen, not necessarily meaning becoming the best wushu athlete or having the best, getting to be in the biggest, most impressive shows. But I think that sense of being in alignment with myself and in negotiation with the realities of the world, that's the most powerful place to be. And you can get there no matter your situation. There was a period of time when I was so upset that I couldn't participate in an earlier generation of wushu, and that, like, oh, the wushu that I like is actually what people used to do in the past. Wushu as an art form has changed a lot over the years, and I think that previous rhythms and styles and expressions of wushu, that I love that. It just, like, lights me up, and I wished so badly that I could have lived at a different time when wushu was alive in the way that made me feel alive. But I can't have that. I can train how I want to train, but I can't exist in a society that exists in the past. And so what I have to do is acknowledge the reality of, like, well, what does it mean to do right by myself in 2025, based on what I can physically do as an athlete, based on who's around to coach me, based on where I could feasibly live and how much time I could spend training. I have to live in reality and find what it is that is inside of me that loves wushu and that is a strong fueling force of wushu, and negotiate that with the realities of the world. And when I can do that, I am happy, and that's how and that's how I came back to not hating wushu anymore, and to recognizing that I love wushu again. And yeah, I'm really happy to be sharing myself online again. I think that's a good outlet in that it keeps me being creative. It keeps my gears turning. It does something for my brain. Like, I think at the period of time when I was so confused, I was also frustrated with myself. Like, why can't I just do this for just myself? Why isn't it not good enough to just be better than I was yesterday? And I think it's because, for me, wushu is so inherently relational. It has to be shared. I do it for myself, but I also do it because doing it for myself and communicating that with other people is a good thing. I think that this is inherently a good thing. And it took me a long time to recognize that. That's the story of how I went from loving wushu to hating wushu to kind of being more at peace and trying to grow more love for wushu, as well as share wushu with other people. I wanted to share this because I don't think that my story is so rare. I know a lot of other people who've been very frustrated with wushu for various reasons, mostly because it's a hard sport. It's a hard art form. And so there's lots of entanglement, I think, that can happen there. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye.